Caulking is a great way to seal joints and gaps along sinks, counters, and windows. But since it's a job most of us feel like we already know how to do, it's really easy to make simple mistakes like using too much or the wrong type of caulk and making a big mess. So I'm going to share some tricks to make sure you caulk like a pro. Okay, today I'll be tackling my sink, my counters, and my window. So, for the sink, I'll be using silicone caulk. This is good for any wet areas like a sink or a bathroom. For the counters, I'll be using acrylic or vinyl latex caulk. And this is good for any dry area. And lastly, for the windows, any type of high quality exterior caulk will work just fine. Caulking sticks to just about anything except old caulk. So before you start your project, make sure you remove any old caulk with a utility knife or a scraper like this one, and then follow that up by rubbing it down with some rubbing alcohol before you apply the new caulk. When it's time to apply new caulk, you want to make sure that you're cutting off the tip of the tube at a 45-degree angle. Up next, we're going to puncture the tube because there's a seal right inside of here. On the caulk gun, you'll see that if you turn this up, you'll be able to use that to puncture. Perfect. So I'll take the tube and I'll place it inside of the gun and slide it in place. And I'm just going to be rotating this here until I feel a little bit of pressure. And then I'll test that pressure by pushing right here on the trigger. And what I'm looking for is for caulk to release right out here on the tip. I'm ready to apply the new caulk. I have it loaded here in the caulk gun. The pressure valve's engaged. All I need to do is pull the trigger, apply steady pressure, and move it along the counter. Okay, as you guys can see, I've applied the new caulk, and some of this bunching, this unevenness, that is very common. Don't be scared if you see that. What we're gonna do now is go ahead and clean that up. And you're gonna need a very special tool to do that, and that's your finger. So what I'm gonna do now is spray a little bit of rubbing alcohol onto the freshly applied caulk, and that's gonna help me make sure that the caulk doesn't touch any other surfaces as I'm using my finger to clean it up. Here I go. And any excess, I'm just wiping into a rag. A few quick tricks is if you want to change the look of the finished caulk and maybe you want it a little bit thicker versus narrow, just play around with the pressure on the caulk gun as you're applying the caulk, or mess around with the pressure of your finger as you're smoothing it out. When applying caulk to the sink, use silicone caulk because that's what you use for wet areas. When applying it, make sure you take the 45-degree angle tip and set it flat against the seam and squeeze steady and easily, applying the caulk smoothly so as not to create any gaps. Once you've finished applying the caulk, you're just gonna clean it up and you're good to go. Okay, same technique, different area. I'm still gonna apply the angle tip into the joint and move my way from the top all the way down in a very smooth fashion, applying steady pressure as I move. Okay, once the job is done, just let it dry before you wet it or paint it. And if you haven't finished up all your caulk, keep it fresh by taking a long screw and just threading it inside and then sealing that with tape.